Hey superstars, welcome to the Get Rich Without Being a Bitch podcast, and I am your host Vanessa for this journey. We're going to be challenging some stereotypes, shattering glass ceilings, really looking at what it takes to live richly and to design a business that's going to support the life that you really want to be living. I'm going to be sharing lots of tips, tools, and strategies along the way, and I can't wait for you to join me on this journey. Hey superstars, welcome back. I want to give you a framework. I think it's going to be really helpful of the 10 guiding principles that are the framework, if you like, the roadmap for how to get rich without being a bitch. And you can start to look at which ones are already in place for you, which ones need a tune up, or where have you got some gaps. And by the way, I'm actually going to give you this as a download as well. So be sure to download it. It's a nice, pretty PDF document that you can print out, have close by, read, start to embody, like really start to take on for yourselves as well. So make sure you download it, and that link will be in the show notes today. But for now, let's dive in. First and foremost, what is a principle? It's really that guiding belief, right? Something that is foundational to a body of work. And I realized that through creating this work over the years, there have just been these principles that have guided me to keep taking things to the next level. And that these principles also hold true for our clients as well. And they honestly love them. It gives them, again, something to always refer back to and to see when they're off track or on track. So let's dive in. Today, we're going to be looking at the first three. And I am going to be reading my notes because I'm going to give them to you exactly as they were written. The first one is, I feel fully alive when I live in alignment with my core desires. My desires are a source of internal power and uniqueness and serve as a guide for what I want to create in the world. So let's unpack that a little bit. There's a lot in there. But this is the first principle because everything that you want to create starts with your desires. And your desires for more are going to be different to mine. There might be some similarities or the crossovers, but they're very unique, and your expression of them is going to be unique as well. In my journey, I really discovered that I felt guilty for having desires. In fact, it was at quite an early age that I felt like I shut them down. I'd expressed them several times and probably didn't get really good feedback around them, and started to think there was something wrong with me, right? And I should ignore them. And I didn't realize that I had started to take on other people's desires, how they thought I should be in the world, right? So again, some of those things aren't inherently bad. They're not necessarily things that I would even change today looking back, but I realized that I didn't question them and they weren't necessarily always mine. There were definitely some ideas around people's desires. I'm talking parents now about the type of profession I should enter into. The type of work I should do, the fact, that I should marry well. That was something that I grew up with, and then the idea there was that, you'd be a stay-at-home mom, never ever work again, look after the kids. That was the noble profession, if you like, right? Some ideas around that, some ideas about the places, the things I could study or I shouldn't study. So again, I was following those, and I really want to be clear, they're not bad. There's a lot of things there that I wouldn't change. However, when I started to look into, again, what were my core desires? What were the things that I really wanted for me? I started to feel that disconnect. It was a disconnect from a part of my past, a part of the upbringing, some of the beliefs that I had, and I had to tap into mine and know, right, that they were uniquely mine, and that if I felt these desires, there had to be a way to express them in the world. So keep tapping into those, right? The seeds of desire, as I call them. Sometimes for some of you, they may be feeling like they're very buried. For me, they were, and it was a huge sense of frustration that started to bring them to the surface. In fact, what happened is I was already having my coaching practice. I was working with top executives, helping them, funnily enough, to kind of fulfill their dreams and their big desires. And probably 6 or 9 months into it, I realized, wow, I'm helping everybody else, but where are mine? And that was what first started to create that disconnect for me and a big sense of frustration around it. Like I wanted more and now I was ready to admit it. So start to tune into those, journal about them. Particularly pay attention to core desires. And the core desires are the ones that you've probably felt like you've had for a long time. I felt from quite a young age, I was just destined for more. There was something more for me. And the circumstances of my life back then and the situation of my family was not echoing what I desired. It felt like in conflict, which is probably part of the reason why I dumbed them down for a while. But when I think back, I always wanted to make a difference with my work. I always wanted to do meaningful work in the world. And I actually always had a core desire to run my own business, even though I had zero role models for it, right? Those were unique to me. And that's where I started from. So really pay attention. And again, particularly to the ones that feel very unique to you. Now, those aren't the only desires. There can be desires for, more adventure, desires for more peace, calm, right? Nobody ever comes to me saying they desire to have more overwhelm or frustration, right? A desire for more joy. So they might be emotional as well. Start to pay attention. They really are like a navigating system, right? That you can start to follow. Let's go on to principle number 2, because it leads on from this. I'm unapologetically ambitious about generating wealth for myself and my family. Greater wealth enables me to make a significant contribution to the people and causes I care about deeply. I'm going to give you my backstory and my experience of this. It took me a long time to even use the term ambitious, to not be apologetic about it, to not apologize, to not feel like I needed to justify it in some shape or form, and to honestly speak about money. All of those things that were coming up for me. So this is why it's a guiding principle, right? Because it is the bedrock of so many different things. Money and wealth touches so many aspects of our life and gives us those greater choices that in turn give us freedom and enable us to be able to make a greater contribution to the people that we love and the causes that we care about. So I had to start to own my ambition. And I know that there are a lot of negative connotations for women around the term ambition. It's even in some circles called ambition, right? Whoever they is, conveniently get the word bitch back in there again. But it doesn't mean to say that we're a bad person just because we're ambitious. And I really think about ambition through the lens of we want something more for ourselves because we want to make a bigger impact and a greater difference in the world. And wealth enables us to pay it forwards. So again, I love that term. I'm unapologetically ambitious about generating wealth for myself and my family. I'm no longer going to justify it. It just is. The third principle, I know with full conviction that financial power is my next level of freedom. I continually shatter my own financial glass ceiling for revenues, profit, and the salary I receive. I spent a lot of time feeling and thinking that just making a difference. I mean, I don't want to minimize it, but making a difference was what it was all about. And if I was making a difference, I was a good person, I was a good woman, I was charitable, philanthropic, responsible even, and that the money piece wasn't important. And I had to realize as well, I came to that realization that without money, I could be trapped. I didn't have the choices available to me necessarily for my kids, for the life I wanted to lead. One point, it actually was the life I wanted to leave. It's not coincidental that I said that, because at one point I wanted to pack up and I left Europe to come to the States. And it was only because I'd been successful in my business and I'd turned things around and that there was a certain level of financial security that enabled me and us as a family to be able to do that, right? Again, it afforded those choices. So I knew that for me as well, yes, it was about starting to look at that through the lens of how much money could I actually generate so that I could generate new choices? How much more could I start to pay myself? How much more could I start to have in profit so that I was no longer so worried and stressed out? And I really believe that as women, we underplay this. Women are rewarded. They're rewarded for being busy. They're rewarded for being the caregivers, for nurturing, for taking care of everybody else. And we don't talk about money and we don't talk about financial, ambition. And it can really come back and bite us because later on in life, if we haven't provided for ourselves, like who is going to do that for ourselves? We're also more philanthropic naturally. So when we have more, we're going to pay it forwards. But I think that if we're not careful, we can hide behind making a difference or hoping someday things will work out, and we don't own that it really is that next level of freedom for us. It's not that long ago that women were allowed to get credit cards without a husband actually signing off on it, getting a mortgage. Today, we still earn less than men, right? We're paid less on the dollar. There are things that still happen today, even though there seems to be so much conversation around financial empowerment. And for women that are in a bad situation, and a situation where they really do want to leave, finances are often the reason that they can't, right? They get trapped. So we do need to embrace this. We need to embrace that it is a really important part. A woman that is not happy in her relationship or in her marriage or is suffering from abuse or who wants to be able to further herself by investing in herself and qualifications and credentials, being financially secure and having those resources are one of the ways that she can do this. Is why I feel really, really passionate about this third guiding principle, and particularly in business, right? We're here to do great work in the world, to make a difference in our own lives and the lives of other people. So we still have 7 guiding principles to work through in the upcoming episodes, but I'd love to hear what's resonating from you today. Please leave a review. Subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss any episodes. Go to your favorite platforms, Apple and Spotify, and subscribe right there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you're subscribing there. And do me a favor, if you've got a friend that you really care about, how about sharing this podcast with her too? There are so many women that need to hear these messages and need to be empowered so that they can also be doing amazing work in the world and taking their life and business to the next level.